The presence that is always pressuring King Empire, and the tool that makes it so that his team is never caught out, while applying as much domination across the map as possible. Barbosa definitely deserves MVP for Game 1.
I don't know what's giving him the power right now, the Matilda or the Dreads. Either or, it's really making the difference here.
Why
for
not
his
both?
team. Why not both? Oh, I mean, it's process of elimination, man. Let's say he doesn't get one or the other. He either cuts his hair or doesn't get the Matilda. Does his gameplay start dropping off, especially against the King Empire, right? Because the early game went very much in sorry, not in King Empire's, the Niners' favor. And I think if they can repeat that process again, it looks very prominent for the Niners, but it doesn't show us their full extent of their power. Can they play for the ultra late stages of the game?
Yeah, and I think the Niners definitely showed a bit of their focus in Game 1. We target smooth, that part of it based on the draft, part of it based on their win condition, but now KG maybe have a better idea on how to handle that going into game number 2, right? Maybe for smooth, you just have to sandbag the lane a bit more and perhaps give him a pick that doesn't require him to be as aggressive. I want to see what the adjustment from KG is for next game, but for now, you look at the post-game stats, this is so clean that it is hard to look at Niners and be like, yeah, they did something wrong.
I honestly cannot help but feel that the Niners went into this game completely planning from head to toe exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to deny key picks from both Jin and Smooth to force them to play into a certain way. And then they decided that they would change the style and focus onto Smooth's lane to try and put him as far behind as possible, even though Yetri on the export doesn't usually need it. And then when you look at their itemization, they just ignored all physical defense because they knew the damage was already done and focused on building radiant armors to deal with Detto. It's so smart the way that they approach this.
Yep, I mean, it's purely calculated, right? And especially for a 14-minute and 53-second game. Let's look at some of the post-game stats. In terms of total damage, we are seeing, whoo! Oh my goodness. Zav's nearly doubling the damage of Sasa here. Moonji very much almost getting close to that Mark II against Detto. And even so, Malvis DR just, he is just dominating right now.
Look, this Fredrin is a different beast. This Fredrin makes you feel like it has not been nerfed at all.
Of course, having the Matilda there just to pull you in, keep you as sticky as possible to any member you decide is unlucky enough to be within your iron sights, does help the case a little bit here. Fredrin's always been weakest where he is a little bit slow, and if he wants to chase someone, it's not the best. If he wants to escape in a difficult situation, it's not the best, but Matilda just makes up for all of that.
I mean, Susujin didn't even get a chance to really swallow the right target, right? He's either eating steel armor from Yetri, or he's accidentally gobbling up Barbosa, who is completely fine with it. And everything just going to Nine's plan. You look at the total damage taken. Sure, X-Win, he's the main tank, but look at Malvis on this Fredrin.
Oh, I mean, there's nothing much I can really say about it, right? You can already see by the total damage taken, it already tells the story of exactly what happens. And eventually, once you get these big punishes and all the lanes are losing at this point in time, the game is basically done for. You have no pressure, no outs, no objectives you really want to sit on top of. Even if it is given to you, a lot of resources have been wasted to make it happen.
And how little damage Moonji took that game is another indication of how far behind Smooth was put. If you're playing on a Gord, you usually expect Yuzong to be your worst enemy, but Smooth just couldn't do anything. And look at this screen! 0 turret damage from King Empire, absolute control from start to finish.
With a Claude, mind you. Usually, Claude will at least get a turret or two.
Yeah.
But this one, total dissanguination. Completely choked out of any sort of opportunity. And that means Claude remains at 0 wins.
You can join Arlet on the show.
I don't want to play with you anymore, man.
Natan is my new friend.
I'm surprised it took us so long to see Natan. Like, he is in such a strong position right now.
I mean, we have seen it a couple of times in some other tournaments as well, but specifically for Malaysian players, I think definitely it has been lingering around more so before he ever got buffed in the first place. prior to the nerf.
I think we treat it more as an afterthought. Right? We don't actively look at the ton and be like, this could be an option. Like, look at how, when I talked about the draft just now, I was like, well, no Harith, no carry, we go straight to Bruno. I think that's how most of the Malaysian community thinks, at least on paper. So maybe this Natan being brought to light might give us a lot more flexibility to work in the future.
I suppose, or they just needed something that has a little bit of mobility to get in and out of these fights more reliably, right? The entry, very powerful tool, not as good as a BMI, but considering the damage output, it's a give and take.
I mean, I have a Shadow clone, right? So,
Hayabusa Gold. Rich Guy and as well as the carry, both going to Zobs here, coming up big time for the team. And best wingman, of course, has to be Barbosa. Sandbag, it's real sad for X-Win, but hey, somebody had to take the damage.
Yeah, unfortunately, Minotaur is not that well suited to be the primary front line. You usually need to at least pair him with one other tanky hero, and normally Barats would be able to fill in that position, but having the X-Borg around, having the Natan around makes it very difficult to itemize against the side of the Niners, and it almost felt like going into this game that they already told Yetri is like, okay, you are the dedicated Barats food. Like, go jump in his mouth, and then when he spits you out, you blow them up.
yeah, you can't digest metal. It's just
Yup.
let it eat your armor or whatever. And also because with the presence of the Matilda, you can see how tough it is for X-Men to even get anything done. As the Minotaur, who are you gonna catch? Are you ever gonna catch them? If you do catch them, there's the guiding wind to pull these heroes out of your effective range. At the end of the day, there was this one instance, I believe we might see in the highlights, I hope it's more of a miscommunication than the nerfs for KGE, where in order to secure one turtle, X-Wing presses his ultimate even when there was no threat.
I don't quite recall that because a lot of it was a Niners show. I think this fight in particular was a really big indication that it was already lost for King Empire Esports. The way that Yetri and Moon are moving around these maps, the threat that they pose is immense.
It was the second turtle, if I remember correctly, on the top side of the map, right? Yeah, that's when they wasted a lot of their resources. But speaking of which, it's just an adjustment for the side of King Empire, right? I think that
was first phase picked. Not many teams do that, but when you're smooth on your side, we say that if there's a Bandana to be picked, he's going to be the first one to receive that honor, and he did deliver on this, the MVP of the game, 8-2-3, and running the fighter emblems of all things.
Yeah, fighter emblems, he goes for the full, he wants to go for that full damage, but he still wants a little bit of sustain here. He understands that he does take a decent amount of chip damage from whatever it could be, whether it be carry, just going with the steps forward. The auto attacks could lead in towards his face, and the same can be said about getting hit by the Shadow Balls as well.
Yeah. In the end, the King Empire have shown us that they do have what it takes to face off against the JP Niners. And like you mentioned, draft now becoming more valuable than ever in order to eke out even the slightest advantage against these two well-matched opponents. Looking at the overall item builds, you can see that King Empire, very comfortable. Smooth, Detto, and Sasa all able to basically go full damage throughout the game because Niners just has no way of actually threatening them.
And this is where you see kind of the benefits of having that Novara, giving you info, and most importantly, every single Star Shatter forces either a black shoe or an instant recall from the Niners.
I mean, how do you regroup? How do you stand together to actually contest objectives to try and regain map control when you just get constantly sent back home, like you mentioned, Husky? It's a very rough situation to be in. So Detto did a great job in that particular case. I do have to ask, we saw in the itemization, Yetri did end up going for mostly damaged Paquito. Do you think it would have been better for him to try and go semi-tank so that he could survive longer against Move?
I mean, it's not about surviving longer against Smooth. It's more so he needs to win out against Smooth. And better yet, if he's able to punish Smooth early on by forcing him to use an eye for an eye. If he goes for a semi-build, it's just not enough. Worse yet, even if we're not talking about oppressing Smooth and forcing him to use resources, Sasa even needs to be threatened, right? And I think even if Yetri decides to go for a semi-build, it's just not enough. You need to have a legitimate threat to force out good resources, whether it be a flicker, whether it would be even just using the corrosive strike, or more importantly, the winds of nature.
I think at the end of the day, it's also how Moon was not able to really participate in a lot of these team fights. The last fight, I wonder what happened, right? He pressed Purify and he ended up not being able to even use his black shoes. Perhaps stunned by the Brody Corrosion strike. That's only something that we will find out if we watch the replay. And overall, it's just so hard for the Niners to participate. I pointed this out during the draft. Most of these heroes need to be up close and personal, and who better ought to do with it? Smooth, Baxia, Grok. You walk up to us, you're gonna be in a world of hurt.
I think Sun Soo-jin had his work cut out for him, but I think X-Win played a phenomenal game here, right? Really making sure these nature's barriers, punishing Moonji for actually walking around the map, and more importantly, having a clear eye on where Malvisner is going to be every single time, allowing Sun Soo-jin to make some creative decisions on his pathing.
We're definitely seeing a little bit of a revival in Grok here, with a lot of really strong roamers that are able to make use of the hero to his full capabilities, scouting out bushes, blocking off with walls, and getting some really strong wall charges to set up for beautiful electro final blows from Smooth. Niners unfortunately ended up having to group together quite a lot to take advantage of the healing coming out from the Minotaur, and because Yetri was already too far behind, there was no way for him to split off and do his own thing on the other side of the fight.
I believe Grace also showed us this with the Grok earlier on today, where if you have a very big lead and you had control of the enemy jungle, you can just purposely aggro the buff and then set up a wall to force the buff to take a long route through the lane.
Yep.
Either through the lane or around the enclave, but around the cove. But it is just kind of a minor trick to really upset the balance.
Yeah, slow down your enemy jungler, really piss them off in these types of situations. Because what are they going to do? Take another camp in the meantime? They just have to sit there and wait until it gets back and resets fully.
That's one of the values of Grok as well. There's a reason why we are seeing a lot more heroes that have anti-CC in this current meta. With the amount of aggression, the amount of team fights that you are going to be fighting in, being able to deny these important tools from the enemy side is so valuable.
Absolutely, and of course our Hall of Famers, Sasa the rich guy, Detto the carry, Malvis, Sandbag, and Detto, of course the best wingman as well. Just a 2-in-1 package when you play the Novaria.
Very, very confident in the way that he plays his Novaria as well. You know, he knows his matchup extremely well. He knows what his team wants to do. He just has to supplement it with a little bit of information, and it carries the team a long, long way. Especially if he's hitting some great shots at Moonji as well. It just feels like, what can you really do?
Every time he hits Moonji, Moonji presses black shoes. It's
Yeah.
like it's the rinse and repeat, and every time Moonji does that, suddenly Niners can't really fight KG head on, because if Moonji gets caught, he is done so.
I think there is some consideration of whether or not they want to change up the draft in terms of their supports, right? Because this Minotaur just could not find the right angles to make this work.
Yeah, I think if you want someone who is a lot more mobile, someone who can match tempos, Minotaur only gets to match tempo if he's the one that sets it. He's not really good at keeping up, but he's really good at setting the pace. In this case, if KG is already so far ahead in the from the get-go, I mean, there's only so much Barbosa can do on the cow, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough hero to play if you find yourself very behind, and if the enemy team already has a better team fight comp with you, having heroes that can dive the backline. We see this combo here around the turtle pit. We see X-Win committing insane ultimates. This was a mistake here with Smooth finally getting caught out for the first time, but when you're this far ahead already, things like that are just small roadblocks on your way to success.
This one, oh, this looks so good. That wall from X-Win was everything.
Oh, so nasty. So nasty. I mean, there's not much the Niners could have done. I mean, they were trying to hold out for as long as possible to get Zabs in a position where he might have been able to carry that, but even then, you can see that in a lot of these fights, right? As soon as that Electro final blow comes out, he is in just so much trouble. Trying to peel people away, it's just, he's too short-ranged to make that work.
I was looking at the moment that Moonji died in the last fight, trying to figure out if it was the Brody.
MVP of the match gonna be awarded to Smooth here. His Benedetta gameplay in game number 2 was absolutely stellar and dominant. And in game 3, although it definitely took way longer than necessary, the X-Boys' constant presence in these teamfights made it very difficult for the JP Niners to actually be able to fight into them even after they got their scaling in.
I feel like I aged watching that game.
Oh, we did. We aged 37 minutes.
Is this what it's like to be sitting inside the hyperbolic time chamber? This must be what it feels
This
like,
must
right?
be it.
It's just exhaustion. You walk out of it. 10 years have passed.
I wanna
We
say
do have
it's-
a time traveler in game.
We do. It is very impressive though. Look, seeing how these players play in this ridiculously late stage of the game, where I believe Moonji, when he was defending base, so there's this trick with Novar that he did. Astrosphere top lane, Star Shadow mid lane. You clear 2 lanes at once, and then you can cut to the bottom lane afterwards. And when he was defending base, apparently he saw his boots, bought Holy Crystal, just for extra damage.
Yep, I mean, all of these small little things is really what's keeping Niners in the game. And let's not forget about some of these calls coming in from Moonji. Every single time KGE starts to encroach on them and finally figures out a potential play that could be made on the Niners, instantly Moon is able to reveal their positions, completely shutting it down at the critical moment.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, those Astro Echoes was also a big reason why this game went on for that long, because KGE's plans kept getting foiled.
Yeah, I think if not for the fact that Moon was around with those Astral Echoes, King Empire would have felt a lot more comfortable to just rush in and muscle their way to a victory like 20 minutes earlier. So Moon definitely showing what he's got here now that he's returned to the MPL stage.
It's good to see him back despite taking a loss, right? Still one of the earliest, most veteran kings of the mid lane that we have. But you know, at the end of the day, it's team game. They just got bested by KG when it mattered the most.
Yeah, but I mean, looking at the overall stats, they're just hyper-inflated considering how long this game actually went. 1 million total damage taken from the side of KGE, purely from Moon just harassing them from afar.
And some insane base defenses by Moon alone.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is that the second to last Lord push should have been an easy victory for King Empire, and despite that, Niners were still able to hold on until the next Lord. It's insane, it's crazy what happened this game. I feel like I am definitely going to blame King Empire a little bit for this, that they didn't end the game earlier, and I'm very impressed by the Niners that they somehow managed to make the Selena Novaria, which by all means should not work against the Team Empire lineup last this long.
I would say that Zavs did get slightly sloppy towards the end, right? The
Yes.
first big push in the mid lane, man stood in front of a Grog and just took it to the face without Purify. That was one. Secondly, it was what? It's trying to whittle down X-Win. Also took a wild charge to the face and the BMI expired. So 2 instances that can really show the fatigue that you know that's creeping up on these players. But overall, I think still very well played despite the circumstances. Hall of Famers, look at this, look at Moonji.
Oh my god.
246,000 damage dealt.
This is so...
How does Sasa have 900 GPM in a 38-minute game?
Hey man, he was defending topside, sometimes taking a camp back to topside, taking a camp back to topside, down by mid, and then back to topside.
Yeah,
That's all he did.
sometimes taking shots from Zavs and he's like, oh wait, gotta run.
Hey, okay, thanks, bye.
Sasa was just going to work.
He really
He was fully employed in the top lane.
But like at the beginning of this game, you would have imagined that, you know, King Empire was doing a very good job sidestepping pretty much everything, right? Smooth gets to do whatever he wants to the front line, and then eventually King Empire had so much so of a lead that this should have been a pretty easy game to close out. But that just was not the case.
Yeah, this one. That
Uh-huh.
nasty shot. I mean, I think X-Wing was trying to figure out where Moonji was, but Star Shadow is splash damage. You block it in front of Sasa, Sasa dies either way.
Sasa gives him the bombastic side-eye to X-Wing. It's just like, brother, man.
But
I know you tried, but...
Hey, do you not know how Novaria works, huh?
Oh man, but in a lot of these fights, it really is just the way that Smooth is holding off that front line. And I feel the worst for Malvis, because Malvis, there's literally nothing he can do.
Look at this. This is the one of the crazy defense. Cut short, of course, yeah. The BMI expiring. Oh, what a rough moment for Zavs.
Heartbreak.
Heartbreak, indeed.
Yeah, an intense battle between both these teams. No one would have expected that the last game of the day would go to 38 minutes long. So
Dulu ya, orang dulu guys.
Aku tengok mati dia.
Tengok aku.
Pada mati.
Tekanmu.
Pada mati.
Guys! Bangsa Hijau menang kita, woi!
Oi!
Woi!
Sabar.
Boleh bro. Kena tu?
Gua kemana? Ini.
Nice, Mandi.
Cloud.
Gua atas.
Tarik gua.
Oke. Aku bakar.
Dah. Batu lagi,
Bisa.
Lagi.
Lilianya
Puri, lihat gua dong.
Nice win.
Mati dong. Nice slip.
Target guys.
Mana. Sini. Ada Tita, baru daksa.
Flicker itu Mino.
Sasaman.
Mino,
guys.
Mino no flick.
Gas. Balikin guys, percaya gua guys.
Mino no flick.
Udah ya. Bisa enggak sih panik gak? Ih, mati dong, ngapain dia?
Mati boy.
Boleh dong.
Kari guys.
Nice lah. Udah end.
Nice. Granatan tuh.
Kelas.
Go.
Susuji.
Boleh ke guys?
Boleh.
Tak boleh. Wah, dengar gua tak boleh coy, enggak boleh coy.
Tak boleh.
Dengar gua.
Basi lampu.
Tolong ambilkan buff. Tolong aku ambil buff.
Cloudnya lo.
Satu.
Nice.
Kode imbau lagi lo orang lagi.
Mati dia.
Mati.
Nice. Nice. Novel dari doang bisain guys.
Respect Nova,
Ya.
respect. Let's go ya. Kena tuh.
Flicker Nova lip.
Flicker Nova.
Nova. Sumpah mati Novanya nih.
Nice.
Depan guys, lihat.
En boy, buat masuk lo.
Nice.